Right, next one. Track 8, final track of side 8, Total Eclipse of the Heart. Bonnie Tyler, of course. Did you know her real name is Gaynor Hopkins? There you go. That's a pub quiz trivia for you. But it was February 83. It was released number 1 for 2 weeks. Jim Steinman wrote it. I remember when the solar eclipse happened, 1999, we used to have Sky and it didn't have many channels then. But VH1, I think it was from about 11 in the morning till 12, played Total Eclipse of the Heart for an hour in a loop whilst the eclipse was happening. I remember that. Funny what you remember, but I do remember that happening. But yeah, I mean,
there's just turning off the song completely, surely, and not wanting to hear it for a very long time after that.
There's rumours. There's rumours that Meatloaf suggested that the song was meant for him, and that's always been denied. Yeah. But it's an epic song.
It is. I mean, the 80s was all about power ballads and this kind of, amongst other genres, and this kind of defines that completely. As you say, Jim Steinman had worked with Meatloaf, another artist known for his power ballads, but yeah, this was up there. The song itself was 4.5 minutes long. Apparently, it had to be edited down for radio play. I believe that the version on the album is 7 minutes.
Whoa.
So, Queen had done it 10 years earlier with Bohemian Rhapsody. Obviously, they didn't think that this was the right type of song to do a 7-minute version of to ensure it had a commercial success. It was number 1 in 7 countries across the world.
And it's probably more of a surprise, because Bonnie Tyler, no disrespect to Bonnie Tyler, but she had hits in 1977 or whatever it was, Lost in France and It's a Heartache. Bit of a gap though between hits.
I believe from doing some reading, she was sort of trying to get her career restarted, and she got a manager to introduce her to Jim Steinman. He'd written a couple of songs which he gave to her, and she didn't like either of them. So came back a couple of weeks later, and at that point he'd penned this, and she went for this. I understand that they have very different understandings of what the song's about. Jim Steinman suggests that when he wrote the song, it was because he was writing a musical to do with Nosferatu. So he wrote it sort of as a vampire type of style of song, whilst Bonnie Tyler believed it was about a couple and a love story between a normal couple. So, but it is a massive tune and a great tune nevertheless.
And of course, Jim Steinman passed away recently as well.
In 2015, there was a show on ITV where the British public voted for their favourite 80s number ones. This track was number 3.
Really? Number 3?
Any ideas what number 2 and 1 might be?
Why do I not think it's This Old House? Number 1.
That might be just outside the top 20, I'm sure.
Yeah. Number 1 in the 8. I don't know. Band-Aid.
No, that doesn't feature. I mean, this is voted for by the British public. So the top 2 were Billie Jean, Michael Jackson, and Every Breath You Take.
I want to be. Every Breath You Take was a song from '83 as well, weren't it? Which could have, I suppose, with record labels, could have easily been on now one, couldn't it? Yeah. So just as whilst we're at the end of side 1, what is your best and worst song of the first side?
So for me, my worst song, you've probably gathered through the discussion already, was Miles Only for Love. Probably be my favourite, as we sort of said at the start. Don't really recall it from the time, but having studied in Sheffield and going out in the city, it would be Heaven 17 and Temptation. It was played a lot. How about yourself?
Well, I would agree with you that Only for Love is the weakest song on the side. I would pick probably Casey and the Sunshine Band, Give It Up, I think, for my favourite still on that side. I think it still stands up. Great disco tune. Yeah, I'd still say that's my favourite on the side, yeah.
Yeah, it's a party classic. If you're doing a disco, like you say, it always gets the airplay, and it does keep people on the dance floor. So if you're playing that sort of a party classics, yeah, it's a great song.
It is.
This album, incidentally, was the best-selling compilation album of that year. Spent 5 weeks at number 1. And of course, at that point, releasing it in November of the year, they started a sales strategy that continues to this day. Let's release it just before Christmas. People will buy it as Christmas presents. So
That's, I mean,
presence, what they do.
it's a clever strategy. And I mean, I've read recently, obviously, they're hoping that CD numbers stay with the new releases. And I know that they are continuing to drop, but you kind of hope that there's life for a few more years yet in the format. I imagine there will be. There's enough collectors out there.
Definitely. I mean, it saw a reissue on vinyl in 2015 for Record Store Day. Which will be coming up in just a couple of weeks' time. I think it's the 12th of June, the next Record Store Day. No albums planned for release on that one. But of course, back in the day, it was vinyl and cassettes are coming back as well. So
yes.
Who knows? Will we ever see a Now album on cassette again?
The two things to mention at the end of that side, just whilst we're on side A. In 2018, like we mentioned, the album was re-released on CD. There was a couple of errors. Limahl's Only for Love, they used the album version rather than a unique edit that was made for Now One, apparently. And Malcolm McLaren's Double Dutch, on the 2018 version, they used the album version rather than the 7-inch version. Now, there you go. I suppose it's hard to try and relocate some of those versions sometimes.
Yeah, it'll be copyright, I guess. And
yeah,
as I say, there has been various different versions of songs appearing on these earlier Now albums, but some artists just haven't granted permission of this. I think David Bowie is the most obvious one that his label sort of wouldn't allow one of the tracks to be included.
Yes,
on one of the more recent ones.